Hi everyone, it's Mari from the Interim Solutions practice at Venari Partners. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Robert Latusek to the Venari podcast. Robert is a respected member of our independent consulting network. He is a former McKinsey consultant and has worked with many esteemed private equity and corporate clients in sectors like pharmaceuticals, biotech, financial services, and more. What I thought could be really interesting is to talk to Robert about a topic that comes up a lot in our discussions with clients: how to scope a consulting or interim need. It's sometimes challenging to know exactly what to look out for as a client and when to go to market. So I'm sure you can help us shed some light, Robert, on this from your experience with your projects.
Hi, Mari, great to be here. Well, yes, as you have said, I've been McKinsey independent consultant for approximately 10 years. I mostly support clients with transformation and value creation queries. And yeah, I've been working across different sectors, but I think my experience lies mostly within pharma and private equity.
So just starting off, I think what would be useful is to break down what good looks like from your experience. What would you say are the characteristics of a well-scoped project?
So the way I think about it is, if you want to scope project well, you need to understand your objectives very clearly, right? They need to be clearly measurable, and you need to understand what the success criteria are. Once you're clear on this one, then you need to define the scope and decide what goes into the scope and what's out of the scope. This will help you then with the discussion on the final product. So what will be the deliverable, and in what format client is expecting the deliverable to be presented. And then there are like a couple of obvious things like timelines. So duration of the project, what milestones you shall have on the way, and deadlines. You need to have a proper resourcing. So the budget, staff, and equipment all need to be there, because if the project is short-staffed, it's a recipe for disaster. And then how to manage and mitigate risks, and how to communicate with key stakeholders, which is effectively a governance framework. So I think if you have those 7 points, it's a very good start for building well-scoped project.
And based on that, what would you say are the most important considerations clients should make when scoping a project?
Yeah, so I think they need to consider a couple of things, right? So again, they need to clearly define what impact they want to get and what business goals they have in mind. They need to be very open and very honest about capability gap, right? So they need to quantify what they can do internally and where will the external expertise help, and of whether they can bridge the capability gap through hiring external consultants. And also, there needs to be an honest discussion about the budget, because it's very easy to say, well, we have budget, start the project, and then the money will start running out. And of course, like if you are under the budget, there are different solutions and different discussions to have. So for instance, you can mix internal with external resource, or you can work with a leaner team. And of course, then we're going back to the drawing table and deciding on the scope, because lean team may mean either shorter engagement, less depth, but it also may mean a laser focus, right? So if you understand your capability gaps and where you fall short the most, then you can adjust your budget priority accordingly. And of course, urgency is a big one. And not only we need to do it now because we will miss our, quarterly earnings, but I think very important question is, if the project will not take place now, what will really happen? What will happen to the company? What will happen to us within a larger scope in competitive environment. So I think this is pretty interesting point as well.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think particularly when it comes to external factors and the consequences of not executing correctly and that impact on market positioning. Another interesting point that we don't hear enough from our clients is the longevity of a project. So that by that, I mean the lasting impact on the company, the ripple effects of it being successful or not. Could you let me know your thoughts on that?
I think what you have mentioned is actually very important and overlooked on a number of occasions, and it's key to remember that external consultants are for a very well defined period of time with the client, but it's on them to implement the processes that would govern the project and measure the performance over time. I think also, while the consultants are on a project, they need to get the buy-in from the client, which effectively means the organization needs to understand, what the project meant to do. Is it beneficial for them? Because effectively, if people within an organization don't believe that project is there to help, they will fight it, or they will just simply ignore it, and the project, or the process will be dead in no time. And then to understand whether things are going well, you need to have a KPI system. So you need to measure the performance. And if the performance is as expected or is better than expected, you effectively need to incentivize people who are the guardians of the process. Because effectively, if organization or people don't see the personal benefits, that will just become another thing on their to-do list. But if they're incentivized properly, then of course they will make sure that that the things are happening in a right direction. And this leads me to the last point. You need to have people responsible for for certain actions, initiatives, and processes. So accountability is a pretty large one, because if everybody's responsible for everything, then nobody's responsible for nothing.
Absolutely. I think accountability is super important. And like you said, you need to highlight the benefits of you taking the team on that journey with you. Also, from your experience with your clients, what would you say are the most common pitfalls or challenges clients have when scoping a project?
So I think there are a number of pitfalls, and I believe that lack of clarity is a pretty big killer. Miscommunication, misalignment of business goals, where the clients they know what they want to achieve, but they don't know how to get there. So actually, putting everybody at the same table and aligning on the process would be very important. This shall happen usually during scoping phase. So investments in scoping phase can bring a lot of benefits. Another one, I think, are unrealistic expectations, and this usually happens with clients that undergoing through difficult times, and sometimes they have perception or they believe that bringing consultants on board will solve all the problems. And of course, this is not the case, because consultants can sharpen the vision, they can bring outside perspective, and they can help collect the internal knowledge and internal perspective, but they are not able to run the company. So the client needs to absolutely be part of the process. They need to buy into the project and objectives, and then they need to be keen to run the process long after the consultants are gone. And final thing I would say is resistance to change. If the communication is not done well, if there is no incentive plan, people will start asking what's in for me within this process, or how this will affect my job, how this will affect my future. So good communication, good alignment, and effectively allowing time for this to happen is a very important thing to decrease the resistance to change.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Robert. Some really interesting thoughts and insights on this. So appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.